Hello everybody, welcome back to Week of Wildlife Wisdom. So far, I've been your host, Zero Yeti, and let's go into it. With the first animal link being the northern Pudu, which is a species of deer found throughout the Andes Mountains of Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, and Ecuador, where they inhabit temperate forests, grasslands, scrublands, and of the mountain steppes around 6,600 feet to 13,100 feet in elevation, feeding upon various grasses, leaves, ferns, sedges, flowers, and herbaceous plants. Northern Pudus are themselves preyed upon by horned owls, both Andean and Benguelid foxes, as well as cougars. Pudus are a crepuscular and generally solitary animal that lives alone or in pairs inside of strict territories around 40 to 62 acres in size, which they mark the boundaries of by rubbing rocks and vegetation with their facial scent glands, scrape them with their horns, as well as leave piles of dung along pathways. Measuring just 13 to 14 inches tall at the shoulder and 7 to 13 pounds in weight, the northern Pudu is the smallest species of deer on Earth, and sports a compact, rounded body, small ears, long, thin legs, and a short tail. The backward curving antlers of the northern Pudu grow to around 2.5 inches in length, and they sport a thick, dense coat that tends to be lighter on the body than that of the southern Pudu, but is darker on the face. The mating season occurs in the southern hemisphere's autumn, which is from April to May. After around a 210-day pregnancy, the mother Pudu will then give birth to 1 to 2 offspring in the austral spring from November to January. Unlike the southern Pudu, the fawns of the northern Pudu are a deep, unspotted reddish-brown in coloration, and while weaned at around 2 months of age, they stay with their mother for 8 to 12 months. Under ideal conditions, a northern Pudu may live upwards of 10 years. Next up is Wallace's flying frog, also known as the gliding frog or the Aba River flying frog. It is a species of moss frog found throughout Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Myanmar, and Indonesia, particularly the islands of Borneo and Sumatra. It is named after the biologist Alfred R. Wallace, who was the first to extensively study the animal. They inhabit the tropical rainforests and cloud forests, typically near pools or mountain streams, where they feed upon insects, arachnids, crustaceans, other smaller amphibians, and even small birds. Wallace's tree frogs are themselves preyed upon by tree snakes, birds of prey, and larger amphibians. Females are typically larger than males, averaging around 4 inches in length compared to males at 3.5 inches, and both sexes sport a bright, shiny green on their backs, a white to pale yellow underside. Both the ears and eyes are large and well developed, and they sport long, thin limbs ending in massive feet with toes that are webbed right to the tips. The upper sides of the inside toes, as well as the outer parts of the toe and finger webbing, are brilliant yellow, with the base of the webs being jet black. When threatened or in search of prey, the Wallace's flying frog will leap from branches and splay their 4-webbed feet out. The membranes between their toes and loose skin flaps on their sides catch the air as they fall, helping them to glide sometimes 50 feet or more to a neighboring tree branch or even all the way down to the ground. Additionally, the oversized cling toe pads work to help them land softly and stick to tree trunks. During the wet season, the Wallace's flying frog forms breeding aggregations in vegetation near forest pools or by mud wallows. After mating, the female Wallace's flying frog will produce a fluid which they then beat to form with their hind limbs a bubble nest. They then lay 20 to 80 eggs inside the resulting bubble nest before attaching it to the branches, leaves, or other suitable surfaces hanging over the water. When the embryos turn into larvae, the bubble nest falls apart and the tadpoles drop into the water below. The young then stay in the pond or wallow until they have metamorphosized into their adult forms. Under ideal conditions, a Wallace's flying frog may live upwards of 15 years. And next up is the New Zealand rabbit, which is a breed of rabbit which originated in California from stock rabbits imported from New Zealand, which were then crossed and mixed with other breeds, particularly the Belgian hare and the Flemish giant. New Zealand rabbits are not originally bred to be domestic pets, but instead were developed for their fur and meat production. And as such, to this day, New Zealanders are considered one of the best-tasting rabbit breeds. When first officially recognized as a distinct breed in 1916, They only came in red coloration, with the white variety being ushered in by William S. Preshaw out of some white New Zealanders born in a litter of reds. Today, 5 colors are recognized by the American Rabbit Breeders Association, those being white, red, black, blue, and broken. They are considered a mid-sized domestic rabbit, with females reaching slightly larger sizes than males at around 10 to 13 pounds in weight, compared to males at 8 to 11. Female New Zealand rabbits have a broad, muscular, and deep body, as well as well-rounded haunches and the ears that stand straight up rather than being lopped. Breeding occurs year-round. After a 28 to 35-day pregnancy, the mothers will give birth to between 2 and 14 kittens. The young are born hairless, deaf, and blind. Fur begins to grow in by day 3 to 5, and after 7 to 10 days, the kit's eyes will open, and by 2 weeks they may begin exploring and sampling outside food sources. At the age of 3 to 4 weeks, the mother will then begin to wean them off of her milk. And all the while, the kits will then switch to eating hay and pellets. They reach sexual maturity at around 5 months of age, and under ideal conditions may live upwards of 10 years. Next up is Aruelia arita, also known as the common jellyfish or the moon jellyfish. The moon jelly or the saucer jelly is a species in the genus Aurelia that can be found throughout the temperate coastal waters of the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, particularly along estuaries, bays, and harbors, and are especially abundant within the Baltic, North, Caspian, Black, and Seto inland seas. This species feeds primarily upon plankton in the form of the larvae of mollusks, crustaceans, and worms, as well as protozoans, diatoms, and fish eggs. Occasionally, moon jellyfish will also feed on zooplankton, such as hydromedusae and siphonophores. Moon jellies are known to be eaten by a wide variety of predators, in particular seabirds, the ocean sunfish mola mola, tuna, leatherback sea turtles, and both the Scyphromedusae and hydromedusas. Both the adult medusae and the larval form of the moon jellyfish have pneumocytes that help to capture prey and also protect themselves from predators. The basic body plan of Aurelia consists of several parts. The adult musae of Aurelia have a transparent look that has an umbrella, margin, membrane, and tentacles that are attached to the bottom. It has 4 bright gonads that are underneath the stomach. There is a middle layer of mesogel, a vascular cavity, and a gastrodermis, and the epidermis, through which there is a nerve net that is responsible for the contractions of swimming muscles as well as feeding responses. Adult musae can reach 16 inches in diameter, and the young larval stage, a planua, has a small ciliated cells that, after swinging firmly in the plankton stage for a day or more, settles on an appropriate substrate where it then changes into a special type of polyp called a scyphostoma, which then divides by strobulation into a small ephyrae that swim off and grow up as medusa. The entire life cycle of the moon jellyfish is fairly short, with most individuals living just 12 to 18 months. However, under ideal conditions, a moon jellyfish polyp may live upwards of 20 years. Next up is the Hmong docktail dog, which is an ancient breed of dog that was developed by the indigenous Hmong people who live in the mountainous areas of Lao Chai and Hai Nguyen in northern Vietnam. Bred to be home guardians and hunting companions, Hmong dogs are remarkably intelligent and highly social animals that are easy to train and are excellent at remembering people and locations, to the point they are regularly referred to as living compasses by the Hmong people, and regularly traverse long distances over difficult terrain without ever getting lost. In the modern era, they are also frequently employed as search and rescue dogs and bomb-sniffing dogs to help clear the land of unexploded landmines and bombs. A medium-sized dog, the Hmong docktail, stands around 18 to 22 inches tall and weighs between 33 and 55 pounds in weight, sporting a thick chest, muscular legs, and a wide but flexible back. They possess a thick coat of fur that ranges in color from black to brownish red to black and white mixed to brindle, and said coat is an adaptation for the weather of their home in the mountainous regions of northwestern Vietnam, which is frequently cold, wet, and rainy. Perhaps the most striking feature of this dog's appearance, and which it derives its name, is the docked tail, which is naturally occurring and typically measures less than 2 inches in length. Due to the extensive breeding as a hunting dog, the Humong docktail requires an extensive amount of daily exercise and more meat in their diet than other dog breeds in order to remain healthy. Under ideal conditions, a Humong docktail dog may live up to 20 years. Next up is the blue mockingbird, which is a species of bird in the family Mimidae, which along with the blue and white mockingbird makes up the genus Miloatus. The blue mockingbird is endemic to Mexico and is an occasional migrant to the southern United States, where it inhabits both tropical and subtropical dry forests, as well as moist montane forests at up to 10,000 feet in elevation, feeding primarily upon insects, spiders, worms, fruits, and berries. Blue mockingbirds are themselves preyed upon by hawks, owls, snakes, and cats. The song of the blue mockingbird is a series of complex melodic phrases with occasional harsher notes interspersed, measuring at 9.5 to 10.5 inches in length, 1.5 to 2.5 ounces in weight, with a 13 to 15.5 inch wingspan. The blue mockingbird is a medium-sized mimid that is uniformly blue on its back, tail, wings, head, and underbelly. This color is the result of feather structure rather than pigment, and therefore can look gray while in the shade. It has a black mass surrounding its reddish-brown eyes, and has a rather long, slightly granulated tail, and dark blue streaks over its breast. Its bill is long, thin, and slightly curved, and its legs and feet are black. The breeding season occurs from May to August, during which time the pair will build a nest consisting of a shallow cup of fibrous roots atop a platform of sticks, inside of a dense thicket or small, tightly grouped of trees. It is here the female will then lay 2 blue eggs, which both parents will then incubate for a period of 9 to 12 days. The chicks remain with their parents until fledging around 19 days of age, and under ideal conditions, a blue mockingbird may live upwards of 8 years. And next, our extinct animal of the week is Lystrosaurus, which is an extinct genus of herbivorous dicynodont therapsid that lived throughout what is now South Africa, Zambia, India, China, Mongolia, Russia, and Antarctica from the late Permian to the early Triassic epochs, approximately 260 to 245 million years ago. Dr. Elias Root Beadle, a Philadelphia missionary and avid fossil collector, discovered the first Lystrosaurus skull in 1850. He tried to send it to the paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh, but received no reply. Marsh's rival, Edward Drinker Cope, was, however, very interested, describing and naming the animal Lystrosaurus in 1870. Its name is derived from the ancient Greek words for lystron, meaning shovel, and saurus, meaning lizard. Depending on the specific species and the environment they inhabited, Lystrosaurus ranged in size from 2 feet in length to upwards of 8 feet in length for the largest specimens, with individuals ranging typically 3 to 4 feet in length and 150 to 250 pounds in weight. Unlike other therapsids, dicynodonts had very short snouts and no teeth except for the tusk-like upper canines. Instead, they used a turtle-like beak to shear off pieces of vegetation, which were then ground on a secondary palate when the mouth was closed. Features of the skeleton indicate Lystrosaurus moved with a semi-sprawling gait, possessing buttresses over the hips to prevent limb dislocation. The forelimbs of Lystrosaurus were massive and would have enabled the animal to powerfully burrow into the ground in search of roots and tubers, which it could then break and eat using its tusks and beak. One of the few species to survive the Permian-Triassic extinction 252 million years ago, an event known as the Great Dying, which wiped out 90% of all life on Earth, Lystrosaurus bounced back quickly and were by far the most common terrestrial vertebrates of the early Triassic, accounting for as many as 95% of the total individuals in some fossil beds. Researchers have offered various hypotheses for why Lystrosaurus managed to do so well in the face of such an overwhelming catastrophe, such as it could enter hibernation for particularly long periods of time. Its large lungs allowed it to better handle the drop in oxygen levels and increase in CO2 of the atmosphere. A lack of significant predators allowed the species to multiply at exponential rates, and its generalist diet and lifestyle enabled it to repeatedly adapt to an ever-changing world around it. As always, take care to my guys, gals, non-binary pals.